interested in making donations to ULEC, there will be information in the chat about that. We're going to begin our sessions shortly. I want to remind everyone that we are video recording this session. So if you wish not to be seen or not to have your name visible, please attend to that. The reason for the video recording is so that others will be able to see it in the future. So this session is about the very infamous International Sociological Field School, a joint initiative between the Sociology Departments at MacEwan University in Edmonton and the Ukrainian Catholic University in Lviv. The program is 4 credit. It is a course that combines the study of social issues with intercultural learning and international travel. This presentation will describe the course and the collaborative online intercultural learning, or COIL, model that guides it. The presentation will also include a discussion of a hope component that was integrated into the course. The panel consists of the course instructors and undergraduate students from Canada and Ukraine who participated in the 2025 Field School. In lieu of introducing each speaker, there's so many of them, we're so fortunate today, I'll begin by asking the chair of the Department of Sociology at MacEwan University, Dr. Michael Gulayets, to introduce the session.
Thank you, Alenka. And thank you for the invitation to present to your group. Thanks to you and Oksana for this invitation and helping us get this set up. I'm very pleased to hear that we are infamous. That's wonderful. Okay, I'll just briefly, you've seen our bios on the invitation, so I won't read those, but I'll just, so everyone can put a face to the name, I'll introduce my partner in this endeavor, Dr. Miroslav Kashchuk from Ukrainian Catholic University. My partner in this hope, well, partner in many things in this hope component, Dr. Denise Larson from the University of Alberta. And we are very pleased that 4 students could join us today. Just in the order on my screen, Yarina from UKU is here with us. Mary from MacEwan is here. Joy from MacEwan, and Anichka from UKU is here. So thank you all for attending, and thank you. I see a lot of familiar names on the screen. So wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Okay, so we kind of decided we would set this up like a round table, a Zoom round table, I guess. So I'll start. I'll describe the program, kind of give an overview of the field school, its evolution, our learning outcomes. I'll finish with describing the COIL model in a little bit more detail. And then we'll hear, I think the most important part, we'll hear from the students about their experiences. And we'll ask Denise to share what she brought to the course last year. And again, some of the student experiences in that. So I encourage our participants, our panelists, to jump in at any time that they would like. Okay, so let me describe how the course evolved. So in 2018, I see Larissa Heduk here. In 2018, the director of the Ukrainian Resource and Development Center at MacEwan. In 2018, URDC invited me to travel to, well, asked me if I would be interested in traveling to Lviv to meet with some faculty members at UKU. And of course, I said yes. So in May of 2018, I traveled to Lviv. It was beautiful, green flowers everywhere, great weather. I met some great faculty members, amongst them Miroslav. And we started talking about, what connections, what possibilities are there for us to collaborate. And I think it's safe to say that one beautiful sunny May afternoon on a patio in a restaurant near the campus, possibly over a couple beers, Miroslav and I came up with the idea of the field school. So about 6 months later, so this would have been late October, early November, URDC invited Miroslav to come to Edmonton to continue the planning process. I remember it was snowing and gray and very cold. So I know who got the better deal out of that little exchange. But that was the beginning of the field school. So about 6 months after that visit, so now we're in May 2019, I traveled to Ukraine with 10 students, 10 MacEwan students, and we had some activity planned and we had excursions planned and so forth. We had planned connections for the students, for the MacEwan and UQ students, but I'm not sure if we didn't exactly know how this would work, that there was sort of a little collaboration between the students. I think we were a little disappointed, kind of at the point where students started to connect with one another. It was time for us to leave. So we thought, okay, we need to rethink this a little bit. So in the spring of 2020, we planned another field school. We had greater participation or greater collaboration between the students planned, but you'll all remember what happened in the spring of 2020. We actually had our plane tickets already. MacEwan students and myself were planning to travel to UQ, to Lviv, and of course COVID stopped that. So we weren't able to have a field school in 2020 or 2021. We didn't even try in 2021 because of the pandemic. By 2022, things were loosening up with the pandemic. We started to plan again. We had time to think about even greater collaborations with the students. But again, I don't need to tell this audience what happened in the spring of 2022. The Russian invasion prevented us from traveling again, and basically canceled the field school. In 2023, by this point we had discovered COIL, which I will describe in a little bit more detail in a few minutes. But we couldn't travel still because of the Russian invasion, but we had greater collaboration planned. It was an entirely online class in 2023. It was successful, but of course it was missing something. It was missing that travel component. So in 2024, and I think I will give Larissa Hedu credit for this, she said, well, if you can't travel to Ukraine, if the Canadians can't travel to Ukraine, you can travel to Poland, and the Ukrainians can also cross the border into Poland. So that's where we added the travel component. And we met in Wrocław, Poland, and that was very successful. We had a great collaboration in Wrocław, and we continued that same model where we met online for the winter term and then traveled to Poland, met in Poland to continue or conclude the field school in person. And I'll describe that again, COIL model, in a little bit more detail. So the evolution of the field school, every year it changes slightly. And I think as we'll hear a little later on, the significant change last year was this addition of the hope component. So the field school has evolved. Every year it evolves, it changes slightly. The academic components actually haven't changed that significantly. Dr. Kashtuk and I have tweaked the assignments a little bit and developed them a little bit, but the academic component hasn't changed significantly. What has changed significantly over time is the intercultural component, the collaboration between students. And I've come to see that collaboration, that intercultural component, as important and possibly more important than the academic component of the course. So I'm talking a lot here. If Miroslav would like to jump in, or should I do the learning objectives first? I'll do the learning objectives. Okay. So just from our academic calendar, the course description is using sociological theories, concepts, and research methods, students study a social issue of global relevance in a country other than Canada. The course provides students with the opportunity to travel to another country and compare its laws, policies, culture, and social practices with those of Canada. The course combines lectures with experiential learning opportunities in an international setting. And then our course objectives in our course outline read, this course combines lectures, independent study, and group work, and intercultural and experiential learning opportunities. The course provides students with the opportunity to study social issues in depth and compare the laws, policies, culture, and institutional and community practices of another country with those of Canada. The objective of the course is to better understand social issues through interaction with others. The course also provides the opportunity to develop skills such as working collaboratively, presentation skills, and research skills. Okay, so that's a very a general overview of the course. I don't know if Miroslav, if you would like to say something now, or...
Yes, we are cooperating with Dr. Gulayets from 2018, and now we have one of the oldest courses, international and intercultural, not only at Ukrainian Catholic University, but in Ukraine. And I had a couple of emails and talks. People are asking to share materials, how to organize such international course. And we are the model. People are looking at us, and I share materials, and other university, especially other departments at Ukrainian Catholic University, want to organize something similar we are doing with Professor Gulayets, and I am happy we may gather every year and improve the course over time. Thank you.
Thank you, Miroslav. Okay, so I've mentioned this acronym COIL, COIL, which stands for Collaborative Online International Learning. So this is, I think it's been around for a few years now. I Googled it the other day, and the State University of New York developed it, or at least that appears where it was developed. And of course, it changes, it's modified by every university that uses it. So COIL is a co-designed pedagogical approach that brings together students from different countries into a shared virtual learning environment. Students work together to share perspectives, build intercultural understanding, develop collaborative skills, and strengthen global awareness. A COIL component can be added as a smaller or shorter module to an existing course. So you could have, a regular, in-person course, and for 2 or 3 weeks, you could add a COIL component, an international online exchange, and then back to in-person. Or, as in our case, the COIL model can form the main component of the course and encompass the entire course. In our case, the COIL component is several months long. So our particular version of COIL, 10 Canadian students from MacEwan University and 10 Ukrainian students from the Ukrainian Catholic University participate. Students are divided into 5 groups with 2 Canadians and 2 Ukrainians in each group. Each group develops a research topic within the broad theme of social inequality. And students in the groups, each group can develop their own project, their own social issue that they will examine. So each group focuses on a specific issue. Groups may focus on a topic of relevance to one country, to a topic of relevance to Ukraine, or a topic of relevance to Canada, or more commonly, groups develop a project, a comparative project, where they examine the social, cultural, political, economic, or legal aspects from a Ukrainian perspective and from a Canadian perspective. And I think the benefit there is the sharing of perspectives. Our class meets once a week on Zoom. And, this week this year it's every Wednesday. We meet usually for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Typically, the class starts with an intercultural component. We examine the research of a researcher who's developed dimensions of national culture, and he's divided it into several dimensions. We examine one dimension of national culture every week, and then we watch a short video. We discuss it. We compare this dimension, Canada and Ukraine. We discuss if we agree with it or not, and so forth. And then after that sort of intercultural component of the course, we break into our groups, and the students work on their project. So that's sort of the research component. We've over time added this, as I've mentioned, the intercultural components. Dr. Kostyuk and I have developed what we call the Ukraine and Canada project, and this is an assignment that students work on right at the beginning of the course. We assign each group what we call it a serious topic, like healthcare, politics, government, educational systems, and we also assign each group what we call a fun topic: music, art, fun customs, things like that. And each group does a little bit of research on Canada and Ukraine, on the fun topic and on the serious topic, and then they present it to their classmates after a couple of weeks. So it's an opportunity, first of all, to learn a little bit about each other's countries, but it's also an opportunity to figure out how we're going to work together, who does what, how to work across 9 different time zones, how to organize ourselves, and so forth. So that's the first sort of intercultural component that we do. Over time, we've also have students do a podcast. This is kind of a fun assignment. We asked the students to make 3 video podcasts. Each group makes a podcast or a video podcast. One the very first week that we meet together, one about halfway through the course, and the final podcast they make while we're in Wrocław at the conclusion of the course. And we ask them to share perspectives of each other's cultures, of what they know about each other's countries or cultures, how their progress is going in the course, and so forth. So that's the COIL component, this online collaborative intercultural exchange. Now, the twist that Miroslav and I have added is at the end of the COIL component, we've added a travel component. So as I mentioned before, the 10 MacEwan students, the 10 UKU students meet in Wrocław to complete the course, to complete the research projects together. In Wrocław, in addition to completing the research projects, we also engage in some extracurricular activities. We have agency visits. Last year we visited the Council General from Ukraine, gave us a very interesting presentation. We went to the City Hall for a presentation on some of the programs they are providing. We usually meet with students from the University of Wrocław. We order 10 boxes of pizza, and we all have a little pizza party. We make a day trip to Auschwitz, which is well, not an easy day, but it's, I think, an important day for us, and so forth. So we combine our intercultural academic research with some extracurricular activities. So just to conclude, finally, taken together, the COIL component and the field activities form a powerful combination of academic and intercultural experiences. As I mentioned, the intercultural components of the course are very significant. And in fact, when I now refer to COIL, I usually refer to it as the collaborative online intercultural learning model rather than international learning. I think the intercultural learning is the most significant. All right, so that's a brief overview of our program. Dr. Miroslav, anything else to add, or?
No, Everything is great.
Okay, good. Okay, so enough of me talking. I think really the best way to see about this program is let me show you some pictures. How's that? Let me share my screen. I'll just show you a couple pictures from last year's field school.
Hmm.
Okay, you can see us. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can see. Okay, so this first picture is from the first day of class. UKU provides us with an office or a room, has tables and chairs, and we form it into a classroom, and we have our lectures there, our group meetings, we plan our activities and so forth. So this was on our first day of class. This next is one of our activities. Of course, we had to do some Easter egg painting. So we have someone who comes in with all the materials, and we do pesika. We paint some eggs. So that was a fun afternoon. This was our tour of at the University of Wrocław. They have this one spectacular room that is, I think, kind of a combination of a performance space and a lecture theater. So it was really, I think, especially for the Canadian students, this is a pretty spectacular looking university. One of our classmates, Sarah, had a birthday while we were in Wrocław, so we went and celebrated. We had a birthday party one evening. I mentioned the podcasts. This was a screenshot from what were you guys? Group number 2. So you might see some familiar faces there. There's Anichka and Mary, who were in group 2. They ended their podcast with a group hug. So I thought that was kind of a cute picture. So that's a screenshot from that. Oh, there's the brains of the operation. And then finally, on our last day together in Wrocław, each group presents their research to the class. So this was a picture after all the groups had presented their research together on our last day together. Okay, so that gives you maybe a little bit of a sense of the group, and I'll just stop sharing. There, that was fun memories, wasn't it? Okay. So let's hear from the students now. So I think we're interested in what students gain from this experience. I don't know if we want to go by nationality, or how would you like to? Let's start with the Ukrainian students. What, Yarina and Anichka, what?
Okay, I think I can start talking about what we gained from international experience. And first of all, what I would like to mention is actually as international knowledgement about sociology, because in Ukraine, like sociology is not like well developed, and for us, it's very important to hear about sociology from other countries, other cultures, and bring this knowledgement back to Ukraine and improve it here. So for me, it was very valuable, and especially I don't know how about girls, but for me it was like first experience of practicing writing like professional paper with properly like using all the standards that we need to like write paper on sociology. And I, for example, learned how to like properly write this list of literature at the end, and it was, I would say, it was great improvement for my writing skills. And also, one more important thing is that we were doing all this in English. All our online meetings were in English, and in Wrocław we were surrounded with English, and it also for me, it gave me like a feeling of feeling that I can do it with English and I can write, I can talk, so I'm not scared anymore of speaking like not native language, writing not in native language. So it was I would say it was my greatest experience in improving my sociology skills on international level. And I give a word to Anichka.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to see you all here today. And yes, I will continue a bit about what Yarenka already mentioned, that it's like an incredible opportunity to work together on a like full research project when you have a chance to to do literature review, to do methodology, like to data collection, and then writing a final report. So, for example, my group worked on a project about egg donation in Ukraine, about commodification, about women's labor and gender inequality. So, to be honest, I still have no idea how we came to this complicated topic, but still, it was really interesting um, to talk about it, like to see how, for example, Canadian students, which approach they have to do such project. So it allowed us to explore a complex and sensitive topic in depth. And of course, like in a personal level, we built some kind of strong connections because spending time together in Wrocław, like sharing everyday moments, living in the same hotel, traveling, discovering new city together, and just simple talking, it created such kind of friendship that goes beyond the classroom. So we still stay in touch with our West Canadian students. And so it was not only about learning sociology, but it was about learning how to work, communicate, and like connect across cultures. Yeah, so I give the word to Mary or Joy.
I can go first if that's okay with Joy. Yeah, Anna really just hit it right on the head there. Being in university, sometimes you're in that traditional school space and it's hard to see what it's actually out when you're out and about and in the world. So I really enjoyed being able to employ a lot of that technical writing, but also being in a space where you do have other obligations. Um, it's not just a classroom, you have other things outside, like you're in Wrocław, you're in a new city, so of course you want to explore and getting to balance that, as well as of course all the intercultural experiences. I think for me that was my favorite part, just having that all that knowledge just from like the real person in front of you and how it impacts them. You can read all about it, but versus being with someone in person and developing like a friendship with them, I think that's very valuable and you really can't get that anywhere else.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Honestly, the girls described what I feel like I've gained from this experience. It's kind of hard to pinpoint it personally because I feel that there's just so many different things that have contributed to the woman I am and the woman I'm becoming, as well as academically and professionally, skills that I just don't think I would have gained doing anything else. But I think one of the most important things to me, the biggest takeaway was connecting culturally and finding ways to work with each other and yeah, just kind of uh, gaining like a deep respect for our Ukrainian colleagues, just being able to perform in English extremely well. And yeah, I think I've gained a lot of admiration and, like I said, respect. That's probably my biggest takeaway.
Good, thank you, Jakuyu. Yeah, it was fun to hear your ideas and your thoughts about that. And it's so intense when we're there. We're so busy and we have so much going on every single day that we're there. But it's fun to think back about all the experiences we had and look at the pictures. Okay, so as I mentioned, we did something a little bit different. Miroslav and I invited Dr. Denise Larson to provide kind of a different, include an addition of hope, a hope component to the course last year. So maybe I'll ask Denise to give us a little bit of an overview of what she provided, and then we'll go back to the students again and ask them what they thought.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you very much, Michael. And oh gosh, it's so fun to see everyone's faces this morning or this evening, wherever you are. I had the really good fortune to spend the first 2 days of the field school in Wrocław with the class, and I want to thank Dr. Gulayets and Dr. Kaszczuk for that, the gift of that opportunity. Dr. Gulayets and I are partners, and we've been married for 30 years. So if I say something that sounds weird, you'll know why. So I just maybe just I'll mention a little bit about myself just to position what I did with the class or had the opportunity to do. I'm a professor at the University of Alberta, and I have actually spent the last 25 years in the pursuit of studying hope as it relates specifically to how we are with one another in relationships, professional relationships, and other. I am a registered psychologist and a former elementary school teacher. And so I think it's especially nice of Dr. Gulayets and Dr. Kaszczuk to let a psychologist into this sociological field school. Yeah, this is as I'd heard Michael talking about the field school, I just kept thinking about it over the years and marveling at the opportunity that you all had to do this work together. And he and I began to talk about would there be a place to locate a little bit about hope in the class. And so what I would say to start with is knowing how important it is to make the intercultural connections, really the relationships amongst students, was one that I really marveled at and thought a lot about. I've done a lot of work in classrooms, largely school classrooms, but also taught a course on hope at the university for 20 years. As well as done a lot of group work in psychology with hope. And one of the things I really like about working with hope is that it can be situated in the context of some difficulty, but it's really focused on something positive and strength-oriented. And what we know from our research is that it can have an amazing, and usually does, amazing effect or facilitate connections amongst people in groups in very good, healthy, and valuable ways. So I had the opportunity to spend the first 2 days with the students in Wrocław. And so I'll just explain a little bit about hope. If I've taught a whole course on it, there's the risk that you could be subjected to a whole course in 20 minutes, and I won't do that to you. But just to say that as a little bit of background, and then I'll talk about what we did during those 2 days. And it's really what the students did. I view my role less as someone to give lectures and more as someone to help facilitate good learning between students. So I view hope as the ability to envision a future that you wish to participate in. This is the way we publish on hope. There are lots of scales to measure hope that have very technical definitions. One of the things we know is that when we employ those definitions, they work for research, but they often kind of kill the spirit of hope. So this idea that hope is the ability to envision a future you want to be part of is one that I think resonates on a deeply felt level for many people. Hope is an experience. It's a life experience that all of us have. It's a word we use every day. We know about hope from our own lived experiences. So I was less interested in telling students what hope was than helping them to kind of bring it alive in the classroom and examine it. We all have our personal knowledges about hope, and these inform us in various ways, and sometimes they're different, but we tend to have some common understandings. It seemed to me that in a course that in many ways is focused on social inequities, that we might be really interested in understanding where hope might be located when faced with examining those inequities. So looking at difficult situations helps us to highlight the need for hope often. It can sometimes help us see where we might find hope in particular contexts when we're explicit about it, when we actually articulate that there's a need for hope. But it can also make it clear where we struggle to find hope. And that's common. In fact, the very earliest writings on hope were about prisoners of war during the Second World War, and the recognition that somehow some of these prisoners of war were able to hang on to hope. So it's a complex experience and it's a complex topic. I know that I'll finish my career not having answered all the questions, and there'll be others who have to take it up. I can see that now at 25 years in. We know from the research in particular that we've done that there are practices that we can use to help others find hope. And that interestingly enough, when we engage in these very simple practices, they actually help us too. And we're often more able to help others when we've been able to find and name and understand our own hope. So that's part of the way that we went about examining hope in the classroom, was to have the lived experience of exploring our own hope. So the other piece that really intrigued me, and it was a blessing to have the opportunity to spend time with students, is this terrific opportunity to explore what hope means and how we might bring it practically to our lived experiences. Our work is to talk about hope across languages, heritage languages, native languages, and culture, and to understand that we live out our hopes differently based on the language that we might employ, and to learn from one another about that. So I thought I'd describe a few of the activities that we did with the class. And I think the students it'll jog your memory, it might remember some of the things that we were up to in those first few days of the field school. So knowing that all the students, were going to be doing interviews as part of your assignments, Dr. Gulayets decided to interview me about hope. You might remember that. And so we had a bit of a conversation, and we transcribed some of that conversation, and we used that conversation to do a little bit of coding, to learn about coding and data analysis. Surreptitiously, of course, I was also having the opportunity to teach or talk a little bit about hope as an introduction, which was kind of obvious, but there it was. After we'd finished that work in the morning, we went on to, and this is something I do with most groups that I work with, to make a Hope Is poem. And I learned, we talked about that the translation for hope in Ukrainian is Nadia. and how some of the words that students might want to bring forward could even be in Ukrainian if they wanted. It's a kind of a found poem, so I just wrote "Hope Is" on a chart paper, and the student chimed in with all the things that hope is, and there are no wrong answers. It can even be that hope is hard to find. So we really kind of started to investigate just in a very collaborative and democratic way all the things that hope could be based on our experiences. And then from there, to round out the day, the students might remember, we did a hope photo gallery. Sometimes hope is very hard to put into words, but we know it when we see it. Like I was noticing that Olenka's little picture on the screen is a nest with some robin's eggs, blue eggs in it. And I'll tell you, that made me think of spring and hope. So sometimes it's the images. So I invited students to go through, we carry around these lovely devices, our phones, and we snap photos all the time. Not really thinking about hope, but I invited students to go through their photo galleries on their phones and to identify 3 images that in some way represented hope for them. It didn't matter how. And to choose images that they might be comfortable sharing in small groups. And we put the students into groups of about 4. So we had some Canadian students and some Ukrainian students, and had them share their photos and tell the stories of the photos and just learn from one another. And one of the things I know from my own research is that an activity as simple as this allows people to get to know one another in a very strengths-based way. We learn lots about each other, and we learn it from a very positive orientation. And so people are choosing photos they want to share with one another. So that was it on day 1. That takes time to do that kind of group work, collaborative group work. On day 2, I will say on day 1, students started peppering me with all kinds of questions, and I just kept saying to them, I'm going to let's talk about that tomorrow. So we left day 1 with this sort of heightened curiosity about hope. It was clear that many in the group were really curious about this concept. So we started day 2 with what I had planned as quite a short 30-minute lecture, just talking about some of the research we've done, some of the research that's out there, and learning both on an interpersonal level about hope, conceptually about hope, and also interculturally about hope, because there's actually quite a bit of research done on hope across different cultures, across different language bases, across different religions, across different philosophies. And it's fascinating that in virtually every culture that we look at, that we've seen research on, there is some word or words that represent hope, and that there are understandings of hope, but they vary a little bit. So I gave this little lecture, and one of the things I focused on that we know from our research is that hope is not just something we hold for ourselves. Yes, it is, but it's also something we hold for others in what we call other-oriented hope. Tends to be a very pro-social orientation in the research that I've done and that I read about with others. So we had a really interesting conversation, and it's always important to me that the class feel really welcome to speak up, ask questions, have the conversations they'd like to have. So what I imagined was going to be about a 30 or 45-minute lecture turned into a 90-minute discussion with the group. And that room was really hot, but we were so engaged that we just stayed with it, and students asked fascinating questions. They asked some really challenging questions. And I really appreciated the kind of curiosity, but also maybe a little bit of like, is this for real kind of questions about hope. I remember questions being asked about, is there hope for prisoners of war And this came from a student from Ukraine. So it's some really deep and important conversations. From there, I invited students to make little mind maps in groups. So they had big chart paper and they put the words hope and Nadia together. And I asked them each to share stories of hope, a story of hope with their group. And the job of the group was really to be very good listeners. And rather than chiming in like we normally might with, oh, I know all about that, same thing happened to me kind of thing, just really listen. And for the group to ask questions and to note down in a kind of mind map fashion the things that seemed important about hope that were coming out of the stories, and to really ask questions. So the person telling the story could say, yeah, no, it's not quite that. It's something else that I experienced. We posted those mind maps around the room, and the groups had the chance to talk about and share some of the things they learned from their conversations. And that seemed to have, I will say, the din in the room was very almost loud. Students were really engaged and they seemed very pleased. And you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, guys, to share their webs with one another. And I had the very deep impression that it pulled the class. Students began to get to know one another in even deeper ways that help foster those connections that I believe can be really important for group learning going forward. So that was pretty deep work. From there, the very last thing we did that day was I had students go out on a hope walk and ask them to do the impossible, which was I think they had 20 minutes and they were to find 20 things in Wrocław on their walk that symbolized hope for them. Remembering that this is a city that nobody's familiar with, it's new to everyone. And with full confidence, because I've done this many times before, the students were able to come back with their 20 things. And we had a little debrief session about that. And it was fascinating because students did all kinds of different things during their 20-minute walk. It was a beautiful day. And some went to the park, some went to some amusement things in the parks, like some drew pictures. There was all kinds of things that came back from that walk. And so that was my way of wrapping up with the group and giving them the opportunity to share. So I know now, Dr. Gulayets, I have talked too long, so I'm going to be quiet and give students a chance to comment if they'd like to.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to do it by nationality. If some students would like to comment on the hope component, that would be great.
I may start. So, yes, Denise told us already a lot about how we were studying, learning the hope component. And actually, I was also thinking about the same thing, about the assignment that we had during our class. So when we were in Wrocław, Denise gave us an assignment that at first seemed very simple and maybe not very meaningful because it was just taking photos. Like we had about 1.5 hours to walk around the city and take photos of things that for us represented hope. So actually really simple. But the results were actually very interesting because everyone saw hope in completely different things others might not even notice. So, for example, for some, it was dogs on the streets. For others, it was friends they were walking with. For some, it was like Ukrainian flag in the city. So we are used to thinking about hope as something very abstract, something we talk about mostly in difficult times. Like, I hope the war will finish soon. I hope your family is fine. I hope you will overcome this challenge. So it's just a default word to explain the feeling of a feeling wanting to help, but not knowing or being able to. So through this exercise, we realized that hope can actually be seen, noticed, and even captured, touched. So it really depends on what you choose to focus on. If you focus on the good will come into focus. So I would say that we were not only introduced to hope as an idea, but we were taught how to actually use it. We discovered what hope means for us personally, and we also learned what hope can look like for others. In other words, how we can actually support them, not only with the word hope, like I hope that everything will be fine, but actually with narratives and ideas that we talk about to help a person focus on the right things. So I think that this was a very important lesson for all of us, something we experienced together and something that helped us build, the inner support we can rely on in times of uncertainty. So thank you so much for that. And I give my word to maybe Canadian students. Maybe Joy?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for sharing that, Anna. Honestly, you did a really great job capturing what I feel like I took away from the hope component. And just to add a couple more things, the first one being Denise's approach to kind of like not reframing, but introducing hope as we know it in another way so that we were able to cultivate it and see it on our own. I thought that it was very timely, and I still have my hope picture gallery. I was actually reminiscing with Mary because she's in it, picking some flowers. And it's just like a really nice memory and some key takeaways to, applying those cultivating habits of really intentionally developing your hope. So, yeah, I really enjoyed the hope component, and I think it aligns pretty well with my name, Joy. So I could pass it off to Mary or Yarna, whoever is wanting to share.
Yeah, thanks for that, Joy. I do remember that picture you showed to me. I'm like, oh, all those memories. It's so nice to just think about how nice it was to be there. For me, I really did enjoy the hope component. I think it was actually like really nice tie to everything we were doing. I think it's a great way to keep grounded. I think it's something in the background we all try to keep when you're in sociology. The point for me, it personally is the point is that we hope that we're doing something, we're contributing to society, our research is contributing to something better. I also think it's just great for the grounding aspect for students. When I just felt so privileged to be there in that space, to travel, to go to Poland, to have so much fun while we were there. So a part of it was also having that hope aspect when you're so stressed and you're thinking about, oh, I need to finish this paper. But then, now we look back on it and all you can think about is all the good times. So I think for me, it was just a really great way of staying positive, but in a pragmatic way. And that was important for me. You can say to stay positive and you can say all this stuff, but what does that actually mean, especially when we're studying social inequality and we get to see, sometimes the horrors of what people have done, especially when we go to Auschwitz. So I think hope is just a great way of like staying on your path while also being able to employ it in your own life and what it means to you.
Yes, and I would like to add, actually, I agree with all those words that girls mentioned, and I found those pictures of yellow flowers that Mary had the day. We all were taking pictures of these flowers because they were yellow and they gave hope. And here I would like to say that Dr. Denise Larson presented for me hope concept from a perspective that I have never considered before, and I have never gave so deep I don't know, reflection of the words that we are using every day, and to follow up the I would say the not impact but probably influence of these lectures that we had. I would like to share one story that recently happened to me. Now I work on a project of developing registry of pediatric oncology in Ukraine, because we have national oncology registry, but we don't have pediatric oncology separately, and that's why it is hard to make conclusions based on the all adults results. So I'm working on that, and we also have not only quantitative but also qualitative part of research there. And every time when I come to a clinic of pediatric oncology here in Lviv, I try to remind myself that I am aware of this hope concept that we were talking about, and I'm not only like the such sociologists as who is entering data. I'm a person who is aware about that, and this is my responsibility to I won't say to share it, but always to remember it. And when I interviewing people, I have to ask questions, remembering about this hope concept, and maybe giving them the idea of that, because usually it is the parents of children who has cancer. And firstly, for me, it was really hard to find the right words, but after making some research, I reminded myself about all those things that we were talking. There in Wrocław, I found my notebook where I was giving some taking some notes, and it really helped me. So I think that I would be that person after graduating, because my graduation is this year, who would work on hope concept more here in Ukraine and try to maybe share it more than we do it now in Ukraine here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, students, for sharing your perspectives. I think we have talked enough. Maybe we could. I see there's at least one question in the chat, or we're happy to answer questions if you have any. Here, maybe while you're thinking, or I see Roman has asked a question to Miroslav and I of how our fellow faculty members have reacted to our international work.
Maybe I'll start.
Sure.
So this course is the only international opportunity for our students. Our sociology program is quite new, and through this course we may develop our sociological knowledge, and we may attract new students because we say, hey, we have international cooperation. You can work with Canadian students, you can travel to Wrocław, and all my colleagues, faculty members fully support this program, especially chair of the program and dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences. So this is a great opportunity and main attraction of our program. Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree that there is a lot of support from MacEwan. especially the URDC, logistical and financial support. So that's much appreciated. The deans and like this kind of stuff, this international collaboration. Colleagues, I think at least my colleagues think I'm a bit crazy for doing this. Taking 10 students and meeting 10 more students in a foreign country, that just sounds like it is a lot of work, a lot of logistical work, but it is also very rewarding. Especially we can see students and meet them again and hear their perspectives on things and how the course has impacted them is very rewarding. So it's wonderful to see all of you again.
Does anyone else have any other questions or comments?
I will share one interesting story because this course helped me to find different solutions, not only academic. In 2024, I wasn't allowed to cross the border because of war. Men are not allowed to leave the country. So I thought you must find solution, and I crossed the border not as a lecturer of the course, but as a volunteer. So I said to Ukrainian authorities, I am going to teach, but I will give some support to Ukrainian army. So I crossed the border as volunteer. I took part in the course, and then I gathered some humanitarian aid in Poland and came back to Ukraine with this support for the army. So this was a great experience for me. And now I have different, solutions to problems which face me. Thank you.
Miroslav is always very creative. Here, I'll share one last thing maybe. I can't claim this idea, so it is a stolen idea, but I think it's very good, especially in this context of working with students, interculturally. Rather than souvenirs, we collect changed perspectives. So I think that's what my hope is for the students is maybe a few souvenirs, but mostly changed perspectives.
Beautiful. Any other comments? So you're getting ready for your next field school, and
Yes,
I understand you'll depart in a few weeks.
That's right. At the end of April, we depart. I'm sad to say that these current students cannot join us, but there is another group of students who are equally as keen and excited about going. So we will look forward to doing this again.
I do have one question, and I was curious about what topics the students explored, and if those were all individual or if they ended up being in groups exploring the similar topics.
So each group comes up with one topic and works on it. Here, why don't we let the students describe their topics?
I can go first, if that's okay with you girls. So my group 4, we tackled immigration, and so then we had to make it more narrow and fitting for our course, obviously. So we decided to examine the barriers, whether they're systemic or systematic, policy, any barriers that Ukrainian newcomers face coming to Canada under the Q8 temporary residency visa. And that was obvious, it's a lot, but it was very interesting to look at how these barriers make it difficult for people fleeing invasion to then come to Canada, to not have credentials be recognized, to struggle to mobilize in Canadian economy, and so on and so forth. but I can pass it on to one of the girls who are ready to speak on their topic.
So I can speak for me and Anechka. She's in here. She was my partner. So we work in two Canadians with two Ukrainians. For us, we had very different interests, so we just collabed on both of those interests. So we have a very niche topic that we didn't really expect to have, but it was fun exploring it. Our topic was egg donation in Ukraine, a reflection of the commodification of women's labor and gender inequality. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but we looked at artificial reproductive technologies within Ukraine. It was before the full-scale invasion. It was kind of a hot spot for Europe for egg donation, surrogacy, that kind of thing. So we wanted to examine the gendered effects of what it means to have that in their country. We compared it as well with Canada. And yeah, it was just really interesting to explore it, seeing how like new emerging technologies and the impact of something like war.
Thank you.
Yeah, in my group, we were working, like, we were actually choosing between media and politics, and we decided to focus more on media, and we were writing about how media shapes youth activism in times of war and the power of narratives in social movements. It was really interesting to hear from different perspectives about what we consider as media, even though we were talking a lot about that with my group, and it was really interesting to learn about this from like youth activism from media perspective, and I really enjoyed working with my group.
Thank you.
From my perspective, one of the best things for me is getting to work with students on projects that they're interested in, and they take their ideas in so many different directions. It's wonderful. Like my research interests are so narrow, but I get exposed to all kinds of wonderful ideas from the students. Just to add a few more from the students this year, one group is looking at police interactions with youth in Canada and Ukraine. Another group is looking at, this is a great term these days, media disorders, misinformation, malinformation, what's the other one? Misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. One group is looking at homelessness and the differences in Canada and Ukraine with homelessness and policy responses to that. And one group is looking at street art and how street art can impact inequality. So really, really different and interesting projects.
Sounds very exciting. Oksana, would you like to bring the session to a close, please?
One last thing, Alenka, before we go, I just want to acknowledge the financial sponsors of the field school. Of course, the UFCI, Ukrainian Federation for College Education, is a huge supporter of the field school. We also get significant support from MacEwan International. And the Taras Shevchenko Foundation are our main sponsors. We also get donations from the Alberta Ukrainian Heritage Foundation. So I'd just like to acknowledge our financial sponsors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear speakers, dear Michael, Miroslav, Ireno, Mary, Denise, Joy, and Anna. Thank you very much for this incredible conversation. Thank you for sharing your experience of building this meaningful collaboration between Canada and Ukraine. It was especially valuable for us to hear how the course integrates intercultural learning, social issues, and of course, student engagement. Thank you for highlighting not only the structure and the organization of the course, but also the implementation of the human dimension and the hope dimension. It was very interesting for us to hear. And the last thing I would like to ask you, I will post the link in the chat now. Could you please take a minute and leave us a short feedback about our webinar? It will help us to improve in the future. Thank you very much for being with us and for joining us today.
Thank you, Oksana. And this brings our webinar series for this academic term to a close, but we will be starting up again in the fall. And I look forward to seeing you all and informing you about the great list of speakers and topics we have then. Thank you. Safe travels today. Thank you.
Dėkui.